I write about Odell. I think he's worse than even Terrell Owens.
Wow. You could be a little more open-minded in respecting the latitude of the different makeups of a star. The complexions of a star is different. You just talk about two great football players were flanked by, and they had two different demeanors on that same football field. And Odell Beckham Jr., if you want to look at what I say from superstardom, what it looks like from Barry Sanders to a Deion Sanders in terms of emotional makeup, passion, and how they show it differently. I'm looking at Odell Beckham who puts in the work. I'm looking at Odell Beckham who puts up the numbers. And then he's not getting anything handed to him easily by his quarterback right now. His quarterback is doing him no favors. And this is a guy who's more of the Deion Sanders mode. And a Deion Sanders back in the day when he put up his numbers also had his issues with his teammates, Jerry Rice included. And there were times where if there were a social media component, when Deion Sanders was there playing like he played, acted like he acted, did it like he did it, you wouldn't even be talking about Odell Beckham being the worst of that situation. You'd be looking at Deion like he's crazy. So my point is Odell Beckham is doing what we have seen done before. It's just now we're getting it every second, every day.
Deion Sanders.
No, I didn't say that. I said emotional makeup and the way he performs and gets out there. No?
Deion puts in work.
Oh, and Odell does it, you just said.
Not like Deion. Deion was flawless, man.
Oh, I get it, but he also didn't play a dependent position. Like, think about Odell's first 3 years. I'm not comparing him to Deion. Stop that. You're going to have me on YouTube looking foolish. I'm just saying that the guy put up all-time historical NFL receiving numbers. You don't get that by just rolling out of bed and showing up at practice.
They just changed all the rules. I can damn near put up numbers out there. Brian?
I don't see him as a gimmick, but his actions are inconsequential to me. From a guy who used to get in a lot of trouble, having matured and having been able to sit in that position where you've been ostracized and your every move being picked apart. To me, if the organization or the head coach goes down and say, we're going to cut out these antics or I'm going to suspend you and not fine you, you cut out all the drama. Because nothing hits harder than taking away my ability to play. You could take my money, I'm fine with it, because if the team fines you, you can write it off on your taxes, so you damn near kind of forcing them to kind of do something if you need a write-off. But if they take away your playing time, now you got nowhere to look and your Twitter feed ain't happening and they're not showing pictures of you on the sideline dressed in, your apparel, your team-issued apparel. So that's the way to cut some of this stuff out. So to me, it's a lot to do about nothing, because if you don't show pictures of him on the sideline, it's no issue. And Joe Green taught me a long time ago. He said, anytime you're on the field, you go out for a coin toss, you playing the game, a warrior always keeps his helmet on. I'm not into this new wave. You always talked about the hair and stuff. It's like he's trying to get likes, or he's trying to make himself a bigger deal than the team. And to me, that's disappointing.
Stop. I interject, because there was a rule in your era and even between your era and his era that was called the Emmitt Smith rule. And that was a rule that was put in place because people of your age range was taking their helmet off every single time they could to show off for the cameras for marketing opportunities.
For me, I never did that. But I'm a guy that's been in trouble and been in those type situations where I never cost my team. If you go back and look at all the times I acted out, the game was out of hand one way or the other. You can't find a game in which the game was close and I went crazy and got a 15-yard penalty. I always knew how to play it. And most of the time when I got upset, it was at my teammates. And so I'm thinking some of this frustration is to do with how he feels about Eli.
Well, I think that I like a guy that plays with passion. Don't get me wrong. Deion played with passion. I played with passion. I wasn't a guy that showed it on the sideline like that. That just wasn't me. I did not get in trouble. I mean, that was another thing. I feel like that, look, when you play a sport like football, it's already physical enough. It's mental enough. You don't need to act out on the sideline. I really believe that you're right. It's like I'm trying to get more Twitter followers. I do like Odell, but I don't like the antics. The Giants have divvied up and like, look, we're going to make you, if not the highest paid player in the National Football, one of the highest paid players in the National Football League. But in a sense, you have to know how to be a leader on our football team. And he's not doing that. You talked about T.O. T.O., you're right. T.O. is a guy that came and played hard every time. You might not like T.O.'s antics, but T.O. didn't do this kind of stuff. It's all about the football team. It's not about the individual. Football is the most sport that is all about the team. And I feel like in this instance, it's all about him. It's like 2 weeks ago when he had the 137 yards. They lost.
Yeah, they lost.
You didn't see him acting like that then. So that's what it comes back to. And you're right. If you take away the playing time, now look, you still won't take away that money either. But you take away the playing time where you can't be on television, all of a sudden, suspension, that changes everything. Okay, now I've got to come back and I've got to try to be this kind of guy. But this is who he is. This is who he is.
I want to challenge all of you all. Obviously, I didn't play in the NFL. I was a mediocre college player. But I was an offensive lineman. And I looked at the Giants' offensive line last night. And Brian, you were a former coach. And this is what bothers me about Odell. I saw a collection of individuals out there for the Giants. I didn't see a team. And where that most showed up is on offensive line play. And so that, when I'm looking at their offensive line, they can't cohesively interact with each other. I'm looking at a team that is fractured. I'm looking at Eli Apple blaming teammates and all. It's all a reflection of Odell. And so when I look at the problems, I can see a kernel of Odell in all of their problems, particularly when I look at that offensive line. There's like 5 individuals out there, 5 individuals individually getting their butts kicked because they don't know how to act as a unit. And I think that starts with Odell's bad leadership.
I think it starts with the head coach's bad leadership and trickles down to Odell. If you're Pat Shermer and you're the play caller, it's hard to be the head coach for the entire team because most of your time is spent. There may be some defensive guys that he don't even know. And, you know, as sad as that is to say, when you double dipping and you play calling and you're the head coach, you can't do all those responsibilities. And so you need help. So if he don't handle it and he continues to let Odell act that way, and then you see Eli Apple act that way, and you see the offensive line act that way, your team is fractured. It's like this. You want a team like this that nothing can penetrate and you all pulling in the same direction, and that's not the case in New York right now.
Well, it starts at the top. It's not Odell. It's not Eli Apple. It's not Coach Shermer. It starts up top when they lost institutional control because they sent a memo to this team and said, look, we are not in the business of winning football games. And how did they send it? When we bench our quarterback for football reasons 1 week, and the next week we bring him back for PR reasons. Guess what Odell is sitting there saying? Hey, man, we about this winning or not? And if we're not, I have a problem with that. So Odell had to go on a mission to get his money, and he got his money now. Now he's on a mission to let them know we're trying to win games, and you know why we can't win games.
And that was my point. When you said Odell is on the mission, he had an opportunity to not sign a contract if he was not happy with them putting Eli or installing Eli back into the game. When they went out and got Saquon Barkley, that's a good choice if they didn't think any of the other quarterbacks were franchise guys, which could possibly be the deal. But if the head coach took the job, I'm sure in the interview process at some point it came up, who's your quarterback? He could have brought Case Keenum with him. He could have brought Teddy Bridgewater, all the guys he worked with in Minnesota. He could have brought one of those. But instead, he said, I can win with Eli.
Yeah, he said Eli has something in the tank still.
Let me ask both of you, not to leave you out, Eric, but you played on the offensive side of the ball.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
The defensive side of the ball is the emotional side of football.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at a guy on the offensive side of football where it shouldn't be this emotional, and that's why he's disruptive. Is he too emotional just as a player in general, but particularly for that side of football?
I don't think so. Michael Irvin comes to mind, playing against the T.O., even though T.O. did it from a different place, emotional space. T.O. certainly got a lot of attention, but it wasn't coming with the look at me kind of feel and connotation that it does from Odell. But maybe that's just the lens we're looking through because of the cameras, the access, the Twitter. We get to know everything about you, so therefore we look at you from a different perspective. But I've seen many of balling receivers out there trying to say me first.
And I'm going to say this. Is it emotion or is it frustration? Because a lot of times when I got in trouble, I was frustrated with a teammate. For instance, we'd sit in meetings and we go over plays and we talk about things that we wanted to get accomplished during the game. and one guy would fall asleep or he'd be doodling or doing something, and you get to the game and that very thing happened, I would explode and people would construe it as me exploding at the opponent when really I was frustrated with my teammate who fell asleep or was doodling during the time we were trying to get this play right. So I would surmise that some of it's frustration more than emotion.
I agree. Frustration is big, especially for an offensive player, for like a running back, because we depend on our offensive line.
Right.
Key example, in Indianapolis, you know, they had got rid of our best offensive lineman, Chris Hinton. The offensive line was fractured. They put me behind this offensive line. I'm getting killed.
And I know you're in there yelling,
I'm
amen,
getting
amen,
killed.
amen.
You know, you don't want to say anything, and all of a sudden they start blaming you. Well, you're not running the same. You're not. I'm like, it's no holes. So finally I said, you know what it's like? It's like going to Vietnam with a BB gun out there. How about you try that? So it's you just get frustrated after a while.
Twitter off.
I'm going to say this.
No Twitter back in those days.
End on this note. Look, just as old as we all are, and Marcellus is just a baby, but you have to be able to handle frustration sometimes with logic rather than emotion.
Say it, brother.
And so, particularly on the offensive side of the ball.
That's what I was missing.
Yeah.
I didn't have logic.
It's easy to say that.